Hi, welcome to Lori Kreins Art Studio. I'm really glad you could join us today. We're going to do a really cool project. We're going to do a collage. Before I get into that, I want to remind everybody that our time is going to be changing as of August 15th. We're going to be airing on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. So set your DVRs or whatever you need to do, but don't forget that we're going to be changing our time pretty soon. So thanks for joining me today. Before we get started, I want to share with you a tip about enhancing your creativity. And what I'm going to suggest is that when you go to look at some artwork at a gallery or around town, study the colors that are used in the piece of art. And try to pay attention to what colors might be dominant, how do the colors make you feel, and which colors are you typically drawn to. And those are just some things to think about so that when you actually decide to sit down and work on a piece of art, you might think about those things in the back of your mind. And the other thing is to look at the sizes of the elements that are in a piece of art and see if they have enough space around them, and imagine removing one of the elements to see if it makes any difference in the composition of the piece. So just some things to think about while you're out and about looking at some artwork. Let's see what else. So the other thing I wanted to remind you is that you can go to my website, which is lorikreinstudios.com. And you can get information there about the projects that you see on my show and about classes or workshops that you might be interested in taking. And also you can email me, or you can send me photos of any work that you might be working on, any projects. And if you have ideas for a project that you'd like to bring on the show, I'd love to hear from you, and maybe I can bring you on as a guest. We try to focus on eco-friendly art here. And that can be implemented in many different ways, including the kind of paper that I use, the kind of canvas that I use, the kind of, etc. So sometimes we do assemblage. So anyway, that's our creativity tip for the day. And so the project that we're going to work on today, and people ask me a lot of times, how do I get inspired to do art, and what inspires me for a specific piece of art? So I'm going to share with you how I got inspired to do the project that I'm going to work on today. I was looking through magazines, and I was working on my art journal, which is just cutting pictures out of magazines and words and pasting them into an art journal. And if you've seen the last two shows, you saw examples of my friend Cheryl, who works on those a lot, and some pieces, some journals that she had done. So when I was looking through these magazines, I came across some pictures of artwork, because they are art magazines that I look through a lot, that really struck me as something I wanted to make myself. So I found this picture of a painting, and the artist's name is Britto. And you can see more of his work at Britto.com. And he is, I believe, he's located in Miami, Florida. And he's been around for quite a while, and he's sort of a contemporary pop artist. And he is an activist as well. He believes in helping others wherever he can. And he did the logo for a fundraiser called Save Haiti Saturday. And anyway, so when I didn't know any of this, when I saw this picture, it really spoke to me. And I think the reason why is that it's very graphic, it's very colorful, and it felt like I might be able to do this as a collage. So I tore it out and put it aside, and then I finally got around in the past few weeks to working on it. So first thing I'm going to do is show you the completed piece, and then I'm going to show you how I created the piece. And we're going to do it step by step. This is probably going to be a 2-week project. So I'm going to start it this week, and then next week I'll be able to finish it, I hope. So this is the original photograph I found, and then this is the piece after I finished it. So I came pretty close, I guess, and it was so fun. And I'm not planning on selling this piece. This is for my own personal use. So I wanted to share with you, I just was looking through a magazine, I found this, and I wanted to try and replicate it, and this is what I ended up with. Now, my plan is to, now that I've had some experience with doing a face, I would like to take some photographs of my family, my kids maybe, and convert that to a graphic image similar to this one and do collages of them. So that's my plan. So I want to thank Romero Britto for providing some inspiration for me to do this project. Now, this is all collage. I did no painting on this except for the black lines. I had to use paint for that, but other than that, it's all collage. So I'm going to share with you the process that I did for making this. I'm going to put this aside. Now, I'm not very good at drawing, but I can copy. Now, there's a technique that a lot of artists use when they want to replicate a photograph or a painting that they might want to do. So the first step is to take this image, and it would be best to actually enlarge this to the size that you want to do. We're going to be working on an 8.5 by 11 canvas today, so the best thing would be to enlarge this to that size, but I didn't have a chance to do that. So, but what you want to do when you enlarge it is then you fold it. We're going to be making a grid. It's a lot easier to copy something when it's in a grid than it's not. So I'm folding it over twice, long ways, and then twice, short ways. That's all I'm doing. So now it's going to be kind of hard to see on camera, but there's a grid pattern here just by the folds that I made. Now, if I had a copy of it, I would draw the lines there so it would be easier for me to see. But since I didn't make a copy, I don't want to draw on this because I want to hold on to it. So I made a grid there. The next thing you do is you take a piece of tracing paper and you do the same thing. There's actually a couple different ways to do this, so I'll show you the two different ways. You take the tracing paper and you fold the tracing paper into fours that way and fours that way. Okay, so now you have a grid on your tracing paper. Ta-da! Now, if you were going to be doing this drawing or painting on paper, then you would make the grid lines on the paper. For us, we're going to be doing this on a canvas. So the next thing I was going to do is I would take my canvas and I would draw the grid lines on the canvas. So that way I can convert from one thing to the next. So I take my ruler, I cut it, I measure half and half, I measure it into quarters both ways, long ways and short ways, and then I just draw lines. So I'm matching the grid that I created. Now, of course, I've already done this earlier to save a little time, but I'm just showing you what I had done. I draw my grid very lightly. Now, the next thing that you want to do is, and there's two ways to do this. One way is you can copy. You look at your original, and then you look at your grid that you've drawn on your canvas, and you just go from one square to the next, and you sort of copy what's in that little square onto the square that's on your canvas. And the reason that this works is because it's a lot easier to copy something just looking at this little square and this little square. So you look at this square and this square, and you go, oh, I could just draw that, and I'm done. And then you go to the next square, and you match up, and you see and you just keep going like that. Because instead of taking the whole thing at once, sometimes it's a little difficult to keep the perspective and to keep the size of the different objects in the painting the same or similar. So if you do the grid, it's just a lot easier method or technique to do that. Now, as you can see, I've already drawn the face on my canvas to save time, but that's how I did it. So I wanted to show you that. The face is already drawn on here in pencil. Now, it doesn't matter. Typically, you want to try to keep your pencil lines a little bit lighter than this. But I wanted to make them a little darker, and it's okay because later I'm going to be taking black paint and I'm going to paint over these lines anyway, so I won't even see them. The grid lines, I do want to erase the grid lines because they are going to show up. So I'm going to do that next. You want to get a nice white, this is called Magic Rub Eraser, and you simply just go down and erase those grid lines that you had drawn on there originally. And they should be pretty light, so it shouldn't be too hard to get those off. Because, you know, a lot of the collage papers that we use are very transparent. And even if they, so it's, you don't want to see these lines coming through on the other side of the paper. It won't really look that good. So I'll just take a minute to erase these grid lines. And sometimes you might erase some of your, excuse me, I'm gonna sneeze. Oh, went away. I thought I was gonna sneeze. So you might be erasing some of the other lines that you drew of your image, but that's okay, because you can just fill those back in. And I think I almost got a little bit more right here. Okay, that's pretty good. Got rid of most of my grid lines. So now I'm left with the drawing. Okay, so now the next step is, you might think, when I first started doing this, I started to take my papers and I would, try to cut them out according to what was on here. So, for example, the lips, I was trying to cut the lips out as they appeared on the drawing that I did. But it was really hard to get the right size and the shape. So I thought of another way to make it a little bit easier on myself. So I took the tracing paper and I placed it right on top of the drawing. And it's best to tape this onto the canvas so it doesn't move around. But I take my pencil and I just trace the image that I already drew. So I'm going to trace it. And you'll see why in a moment. So I'm just tracing around the guy's head first, and then I'll go down and do the rest of it. Tracing the word art over here on the side, which I think is really cool. So you just continue tracing all the elements in a piece. There's the lips. Now the nose, I don't really have to do that much because I'm not going to be cutting that out, but there is a section of the face that I'm going to be cutting out that I want to make sure I get. Anyway, the eyebrows and eyes and the rest of the head, the hairline. I have to do the hairline. And then you have the chunks of hair, sections of hair here that I did. And then his jacket and his shirt. It's all sectioned up. There's some circles here. And this heart that's on his face is actually divided up like that. I forgot to trace that part, to draw that part. All right, so I pretty much now have, and there's a circle here, pretty much have now a drawing of the drawing. So I traced it. Now I have this on tracing paper. So the next steps, this is going to make it a lot easier to transform this into a collage. The next step, and I have another drawing here that I did earlier that took a little bit less time. I mean, I took more time to do this a little more carefully when I did it back in my studio earlier. So the next step is you're going to be cutting the tracing that you did up into little sections. And once you do that, you'll be able to just trace those onto your paper, and then you can then you'll have the right shapes to put on your collage. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So I'm going to start with his jacket. On the lower left side here, he's got the top of his jacket. So I'm going to cut that out first. Now, the thing is that you have to be a little bit careful about what section you're cutting out and when, because I noticed the first time I did it, I just started cutting up the whole thing, and then I kind of forgot which piece went where. It was like trying to put a puzzle back together. So this time, I'm just going to do one section at a time, so I know exactly where the pieces are going to go. So I've got now his jacket. Now I have to get my black paper, because his jacket is black. So I take a piece of my black paper, and I lay it down on I lay the tracing paper down, and I trace it. It's a little hard to see on black, but you get the idea. So I just trace it around. Hopefully I'll be able to see that. And then I just cut it right where I traced it. Now when you're using lighter colored paper, which we'll be doing in a second, you'll see that you want to make the lines further outside of the actual shape because you don't want the lines, your pencil lines, to show. So let's see if I did it. Good. There. So now I have my jacket piece. Now I'm going to get my canvas, and it's kind of like putting together a puzzle. So all I have to do, oh, it came out a little bit bigger than I wanted, so I'm going to trim that down just a tad. Get my little scissors. So I'm going to cut that off a little bit here on the side. Now it doesn't have to be exact, you know, but you want to get it close because you don't want to be covering up pieces, other pieces of it. So let's do that. There we go. That's a little bit better. I just want to cut this little piece off there. Now I take my glue and my brush, and I have a couple of different sizes of brushes today. I've got my 1 inch and my 1/2 inch and my pointy brush, and then I have some really small brushes over here, and I'm going to use those for doing the black outline. After I've done all the collaging, I'm going to use that for the black outline, the small ones. So now I'm just going to glue down. Now you can put the glue on the canvas, or you can put the glue on the paper. If you're using really thin tissue paper, I recommend putting the glue on the canvas first and just covering up that area where you're going to be gluing and just laying it right down on top. And that's it. We have one piece of our collage. And I'm just going to smooth that down. It was really amazing when I was working on this. After I had put all the paper down, it looked good, but it wasn't until I actually put the black lines on, and it just brought it all together. It was so cool. I also have pictures of the process. I took pictures of each step of the process, and I put it on my Facebook page. So if you go on, you can friend me on Facebook, and I think it's Lori Kreins Art Studios. You can try and search for me on Facebook. Become my friend. Okay, so the next piece I'm going to work on is I'm going to do these letters over here on the side that say art. So I'm just going to cut those out. And I'll be able to just lie those down on top of. So there's my A. I need my little scissors, I think, to do these. And my R. Now, if you get anxious and you want to just cut everything out at the same time, you can. I just suggest that maybe you want to number the pieces. For example, if I do his hair, and I want to cut all those little pieces of hair out at the same time, I might number them so I'll know which order they go in when I lay them back down. Okay, and there's my T. Finish cutting out the A. It just makes it so easy and doable. You might get overwhelmed if you see a piece of artwork that you really like, and you want to just kind of experiment and see if you can do one similar. This takes some of the anxiety away because you're just cutting and tracing. And when you do the grid, it makes it a lot easier to draw the image as well. And I would suggest picking something not too complicated in the beginning, because you don't want to overwhelm yourself. And this just seemed doable to me because there wasn't that many elements to it. Okay, so the A in the art is gray. So I'm finding my gray paper here. I'm going to just do the same thing. Trace my A. Whoops. Onto the paper. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to kind of get the idea. As long as it's close, it'll still work. I'll get my bigger scissors. There we go. And after I cut this out, I can glue it on the canvas. And this paper is very, very thin and flimsy, so it's kind of hard to work with, but it was the only gray I had. And actually, I think I found this is some kind of scrap packing paper. I don't know, I'm not exactly sure, but so I'm going to glue this down over top of the A, and again, I'm just going to put the glue right on the canvas. And just lay it right on top. There we go. Now the R is this bright orange color, so I'll do that one next. Just trace that around. I love this bright orange color. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons why this piece of artwork appealed to me so much was because of the bright colors that were all over the place. It just really popped for me. So when I was going through my papers to try to find papers that were going to work in the composition that sort of were similar colors to what the artist used, I had plenty of them because again, when I talked earlier about looking at a piece of art and seeing what colors really appeal to you, this is, I know that for me, bright colors I really like. So when I found this brightly colored portrait, I was really excited to be able to work on it. So now this paper is a little bit thicker, and also I've noticed that I have pencil lines here, so I'm just going to erase those. This eraser is so nice; it just takes those pencil lines right off. And now instead, I'm gonna put the glue on the back of this paper because this paper is a little bit more thicker. It's a little thicker than the other paper, and I want to make sure that the glue really gets absorbed into the paper so that it'll stay and it'll stick nicely. And of course, we're using our acrylic matte medium as our glue, and it is watered down a little bit because otherwise it would be too thick. So we're putting that R right down on there. And again, I've got some black lines showing there, but normally the lines would be a little lighter. I just made them darker because I wanted to be able to see them on the TV cameras. Now we're going to do the T, and the T color is a darker brown. I'm looking on the floor there because that's where I have the collage that I had already finished. So I just want to make sure I'm getting the colors that I want. Although you can change the colors, you certainly don't have to copy exactly what the artist did. As a matter of fact, that makes it a little bit more fun, is to add your own personality and expression to the piece that you might be working on. So you can swap up the colors, do any colors you want. Make it a little bit more original. So I'm just going to cut out the T. There. And glue it on. And there we go. There, that looks pretty nice. Now the next piece I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm going to do the lips. So I come over here to my tracing paper, and I'm going to cut the lips out. And then I'll trace those onto some really bright purple colored paper, and then I'll glue those on. I love the lips. This is probably part of my favorite part of this painting is the lips. They're just so, I don't know what it is about it, but they're so bright. All right, so I have to cut the bottom apart from the top because there's sort of two pieces here, and the middle stays white. So I'm just going to leave the canvas as is. All right, so now I have to find my, let's see what color. Yeah, it's this bright pink. Love this bright pink. So I just have to get my little handy dandy pencil sharpener here because my pencil is getting a little dull. There we go. Now this is a very skinny pair of lips, so I have to be a little bit careful about tracing them. And there we go. I'll cut those out. And that's the top of the lips. And then we have to do the bottom of the lips. So we just keep going with the tracing. This is the Latka paper that I'm using. It's, I don't know the color, it's some kind of bright pink Latka paper. And of course it's eco-friendly because they make it from a renewable source of these bushes that grow in Nepal on the hillside. And they just use the, let's see if this is going to work. They use the leaves from that tree and make the paper, and then it grows back. Well, it's close enough. My, this particular version of the face might be a little goofy because I'm not being quite as careful as I would had I made the original time, because I'm trying to make sure I can get through enough of this to show you what it's going to look like. And now I'm going to put the lips on. I think I'm going to reverse them because I did get some pencil on there. So I'll just turn those upside down and do them the other way. I think that'll work just fine. There we go. They look a little clowny because I think I made them a little too big, but that's okay. All right, looks like we only have a minute left. So, boy, I'll tell you, this goes. Time flies when you're having fun, huh? Anyway, so I'm just going to keep working on this, and then next week we're going to come back and we're going to continue it until we get it done. And that way you'll be able to see from start to finish how to do a collage using the tracing paper, cutting out the pieces, and then gluing onto your canvas. And anybody can do this, I guarantee it. If I can do it, you can do it. It's really easy. So visit my website, LoriKreinsStudios.com, and send me comments or information, or if you're working on a project, I'd love to see pictures of them. And don't forget, our show is going to be now airing as of August 15th on Thursday nights at 6 o'clock, so I hope you'll join us then. And I hope you take the time to do something creative every day. And I want to thank you for joining me, and have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.